Atlanta, Georgia, a vibrant city with a deep history and a community striving for progress, sets the stage for this story. Maya Williams, a 28-year-old high school teacher, is known for her warmth, dedication, and passion for her students. Now 8 months pregnant, Maya and her husband, Jamal Williams, are filled with excitement and anticipation as they prepare to welcome their first child into the world. Despite their modest life, the couple has built a home filled with love and hope for the future. One quiet afternoon, Maya decided to stop by a local grocery store after work. She carefully selected items, imagining how they would care for their baby in the coming weeks. Her shopping trip was ordinary, the kind of everyday moment she cherished during her pregnancy. After paying for her groceries, Maya stepped out into the warm afternoon sun, carrying a bag filled with essentials and smiling softly at the thought of the life growing inside her. As she made her way across the parking lot, her peaceful day was suddenly interrupted. The screech of tires broke the quiet, and a police cruiser sped into the lot, coming to an abrupt halt just feet away from her. Startled, Maya froze, her heartbeat quickening as the door of the car swung open. Stepping out was Officer Thomas Hayes, a middle-aged white cop with a hardened expression and an intimidating air. Maya had lived in Atlanta all her life and was no stranger to stories of police misconduct, but she had never thought she would be at the center of one. In that moment, the familiar surroundings of the grocery store parking lot became a place of uncertainty and fear. Maya had no idea that what was about to unfold would not only shatter her sense of safety, but also spark a battle for justice that would forever change her family's life and touch the hearts of people across the nation. As Maya Williams stood frozen in the parking lot, Officer Thomas Hayes stepped out of his patrol car, radiating an air of authority and menace. A middle-aged white cop with a reputation for racial profiling and abuse of power, Hayes had become a figure of fear in the community. He approached Maya with a sharp, scrutinizing glare, as if searching for a reason to accuse her. Maya's heart raced, but she held her ground, though her growing anxiety was difficult to conceal. "Stop right there," Hayes barked, his commanding tone cutting through the air. Maya turned, startled and confused. "What were you doing in that store?" he demanded, his eyes scanning her from head to toe, lingering on her grocery bag and pregnant belly. Despite the panic rising inside her, Maya replied calmly, "I was shopping for my family. I didn't do anything wrong." But her measured response seemed to enrage Hayes further. "Don't play smart with me," he snapped, closing the distance between them. "You fit the description of someone causing trouble around here." His words weren't just an unfounded accusation. They carried the weight of prejudice, implying guilt simply because of her appearance. Maya instinctively stepped back, her hands clutching the grocery bag tighter as her stomach tightened with dread. The tension escalated as a small crowd began to notice the confrontation. Some bystanders discreetly pulled out their phones to record, while others avoided making eye contact with Hayes, fearful of becoming targets themselves. Maya, now visibly shaking, tried again to explain, her voice firm but nervous. "I'm just heading home. Please, I don't want any trouble." Hayes, however, wasn't listening. His focus was solely on exerting his authority and intimidating her. "Stay still," Hayes shouted, stepping even closer, his voice booming with aggression. Maya felt trapped, her chest tightening with every second. In desperation, she spoke up, her voice trembling. "I'm pregnant. Please just stop." But her plea for mercy only seemed to fuel Hayes's anger. His towering presence loomed over her, and the tension was suffocating. Maya had no idea that this moment of injustice would not only change her life forever, but also ignite a fight for justice that would capture the attention of the entire nation. Maya Williams lay on the cold asphalt of the parking lot, clutching her stomach as waves of pain coursed through her body. The groceries she had been carrying spilled across the ground, their contents rolling aimlessly as she gasped for air. Her pleas for help echoed through the lot, finally breaking the frozen silence of the crowd. Several onlookers, horrified by what they had just witnessed, rushed to her side, while others recorded the scene on their phones. One bystander, a middle-aged woman, called 911, her voice trembling as she described the brutal attack. "She's pregnant," he kicked her. "Please send help now." Despite the growing commotion, Officer Thomas Hayes stood unfazed, his face twisted with anger and defiance. He glanced around at the gathering crowd, daring anyone to challenge him. "Back off," he barked, his hand resting on the holster of his gun, sending a clear message of intimidation. Some in the crowd hesitated, but the videos capturing the incident had already started spreading across social media, sparking outrage as hashtags like #YouJusticeForMaya and End Police Brutality began trending. Within minutes, the wail of ambulance sirens filled the air. Paramedics arrived and carefully lifted Maya onto a stretcher, their faces tense with urgency. Maya's breaths were shallow, her hands instinctively protecting her belly. She whispered weakly, "My baby. Please save my baby." The paramedics assured her they were doing everything they could, but their grim expressions betrayed their concern. At the hospital, doctors raced against time to stabilize Maya. Tests revealed that the violent kick had placed both her and her unborn child at significant risk. Meanwhile, Jamal Williams, Maya's husband, received the life-changing call at work. A friend who had witnessed the incident told him, "Maya's hurt. She's at the hospital. It's bad." Dropping everything, Jamal jumped into his car, weaving through traffic with tears streaming down his face. His mind raced with questions and fears as he imagined the worst. When Jamal arrived at the hospital, the sight of his wife in a hospital bed, pale and in pain, broke him. Machines beeped steadily around her, monitoring her fragile condition. Maya's voice trembled as she recounted what had happened. "He kicked me. He didn't care." Jamal held her hand tightly, his heart heavy with grief and anger. He vowed silently, "I will not let this go unpunished. They will answer for what they've done." Unbeknownst to Officer Hayes, the incident had set a chain reaction in motion. The community's outrage, combined with Jamal's determination, was about to ignite a powerful fight for justice that would resonate far beyond Atlanta. Jamal Williams sat in the dimly lit hospital room, his mind racing as he watched his wife Maya rest, her pale face etched with pain and exhaustion. Beside her, the steady beeping of the monitors served as a haunting reminder of how close they had come to losing both her and their unborn child. Anger and sorrow churned inside him, but they quickly hardened into resolve. Jamal knew that the man responsible for this, the man who had so callously kicked his pregnant wife, would not walk away unscathed. Determined to fight for justice, Jamal decided to use every resource at his disposal to ensure Officer Hayes was held accountable. Jamal, a former cybersecurity expert for the military, quickly turned to the skills he had honed during his years of service. Late into the night, he began digging into public records, news reports, and online forums, piecing together a profile of Officer Thomas Hayes. What he uncovered was a pattern of misconduct, multiple complaints of excessive force, racial profiling, and abuse of power, all swept under the rug by a corrupt system that protected its own. Armed with this knowledge, Jamal realized this wasn't just about his family. It was about dismantling a culture of impunity that allowed officers like Hayes to thrive. He didn't stop there. Jamal reached out to friends from his military days, many of whom were now lawyers, journalists, and activists. He shared the video footage recorded by bystanders, urging them to amplify Maya's story. Within hours, the footage had gone viral on social media, accompanied by hashtags like #IJusticeForMaya and #AstopPoliceViolence. The nation's attention turned to Atlanta as the shocking images of a pregnant woman being kicked by a police officer circulated widely. News outlets picked up the story, and protests began to form outside the local police station, demanding accountability. Jamal's efforts didn't stop at raising awareness. He compiled a meticulous dossier of evidence, linking Hayes to a broader network of corruption within the police department. He uncovered records of buried complaints and tampered evidence, pointing to a system designed to protect officers at all costs. With this arsenal of evidence, Jamal approached civil rights organizations and legal experts, ensuring he had a powerful team to support his fight. As the movement gained traction, Jamal became the face of the fight for justice, balancing his public advocacy with quiet moments at Maya's bedside. For him, this was more than a battle for accountability. It was a fight to protect his family and ensure no one else would endure the same pain. What Hayes had done was unforgivable, but Jamal's response would show the world that resilience and determination could turn tragedy into transformation. As the fight for justice intensified, Officer Thomas Hayes found himself under increasing pressure. The viral video of his assault on Maya Williams had sparked outrage across the nation, with protests erupting not just in Atlanta, but in cities nationwide. Demonstrators held signs reading "Justice for Maya" and "End Police Brutality," their chants echoing through the streets. Yet, instead of showing remorse, Hayes doubled down, convinced that the system that had protected him for years would shield him once again. Behind the scenes, however, Jamal Williams was unraveling the very foundations of that system. The first signs of Hayes's desperation appeared in the form of anonymous threats. Late one evening, Jamal's phone buzzed with a blocked number. A cold, unrecognizable voice warned, "Back off, or your family will regret it." Jamal, though shaken, refused to be intimidated. He had faced far greater dangers during his military service and resolved to continue his fight. Meanwhile, Maya, still recovering in the hospital, insisted on being kept informed despite her fragile condition. "This isn't just about us," she told Jamal. "We need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Jamal's investigation began to uncover more than just Hayes's personal misconduct. It revealed a deeply entrenched network of corruption within the police department. Records showed complaints against Hayes and others being dismissed without proper investigation. Crime scene reports altered to protect officers, and whistleblowers silenced. It became clear that Hayes wasn't acting alone. He was part of a system that enabled and covered up abuses of power. As the evidence mounted, Hayes grew increasingly paranoid. Reports of him attempting to destroy records and intimidate witnesses began to surface. In one chilling incident, a suspicious man was spotted loitering near Maya's hospital room, prompting the hospital to increase security. For Jamal, this was further proof that Hayes and his allies were willing to go to extreme lengths to protect themselves. However, Hayes's actions only fueled public anger. More witnesses came forward to share their experiences of harassment and abuse at his hands, adding to the growing list of allegations. Within the police department, cracks began to form. Younger officers, disillusioned by the corruption, quietly reached out to Jamal's legal team, providing critical insider information. One officer, Lucas Harper, even agreed to testify, despite the risks to his career and safety. Jamal knew the stakes were higher than ever. The threats against his family only strengthened his resolve to dismantle the system that allowed people like Hayes to thrive. As public pressure reached a boiling point, it became clear that this fight was no longer just about justice for Maya. It was about exposing and tearing down a corrupt system that had been hidden in plain sight for far too long. The fight for justice reached its boiling point when Jamal Williams, armed with overwhelming evidence, decided to confront Officer Thomas Hayes directly. After months of investigations, collaboration with legal experts, and public outrage, Jamal knew it was time to strike where Hayes felt most secure: the New Orleans Police Department. On a bright morning, Jamal arrived at the station accompanied by his team of lawyers, civil rights activists, and representatives from human rights organizations. In his hands was a thick folder containing indisputable evidence of Hayes's misconduct and the corruption that protected him. Outside, a large crowd of protesters gathered, chanting justice for Maya and holding signs that demanded accountability. Inside the station, Hayes watched the scene unfold on a security monitor. His usual arrogance faltered as he realized the scale of the opposition. Jamal and his team entered the department's conference room, where senior officers had been summoned. Hayes, however, refused to back down, entering the room with a smirk that barely masked his unease. "If you're here to complain, I don't have time," he sneered. But Jamal remained composed. "This isn't a complaint," Jamal replied firmly, holding up the folder. "This is evidence, evidence of everything you've done and the system that has protected you." The room fell silent as Jamal's team began presenting the evidence: witness testimonies, video footage, and records of buried complaints. The final blow came when Lucas Harper, a young officer disillusioned by the corruption, stepped forward to testify against Hayes. His words landed like a hammer, leaving Hayes visibly shaken. As internal affairs officers entered the room to arrest Hayes, the crowd outside erupted into cheers. For Jamal, this moment wasn't just about Maya. It was the beginning of dismantling a system that had allowed such injustices to thrive. The arrest of Officer Thomas Hayes marked a pivotal moment for Maya and Jamal Williams. But their fight was far from over. While Hayes had been brought to justice, the system that enabled his actions remained intact, requiring deeper reform. The viral movement sparked by Maya's assault continued to grow, with national media coverage and community support amplifying calls for systemic change. Jamal, though exhausted, remained determined to ensure that no one else would endure the pain his family had suffered. As Maya recovered in the hospital, she and Jamal began discussing how to turn their tragedy into a force for good. Using the settlement funds they received after Hayes's conviction, the couple established the Williams Foundation for Justice and Equality, an organization dedicated to supporting victims of police brutality and advocating for police reform. The foundation provided legal aid, mental health resources, and educational programs aimed at fostering trust between communities and law enforcement. "We can't let this end with us," Maya told Jamal one evening. "This fight has to mean something." The foundation's opening ceremony was a powerful moment for the Williams family and their community. Held in a local park, the event drew hundreds of supporters, from activists to neighbors, who had stood by them throughout their ordeal. Maya, now holding her newborn daughter, Hope, stood beside Jamal as they addressed the crowd. "This isn't just about our family," Maya said, her voice strong despite the emotion in her eyes. "It's about everyone who has suffered in silence. Together, we can create a world where justice prevails." The Williams Foundation quickly became a beacon of hope, inspiring similar initiatives nationwide. While their journey had been painful, Maya and Jamal emerged stronger, using their loss to ignite change. For them, justice wasn't just a destination. It was a legacy they would continue to build for future generations. The story of Maya and Jamal Williams teaches us profound lessons about resilience, justice, and the power of community. It reminds us that in the face of adversity, staying silent is never the answer. Standing up for what is right, even when the odds seem insurmountable, can lead to meaningful change, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. One key takeaway from this story is the importance of accountability. Whether in personal interactions or societal systems, Holding wrongdoers accountable is essential to ensuring justice. This requires courage, persistence, and collaboration, as seen in how Jamal rallied the community and used every resource to expose the corruption protecting Hayes. Another lesson is the power of unity. Maya's story sparked a movement because people came together, amplifying her voice and demanding change. It highlights the role each of us can play, whether through speaking out, supporting others, or contributing to causes that fight against injustice. Lastly, the story encourages us to transform pain into purpose. Despite their suffering, the Williams family used their experience to create a foundation that supports others and fosters systemic reform. It's a reminder that, while we may not always control what happens to us, we can choose how we respond and inspire others to do the same. The story today is not just about standing up to injustice, but also about the strength it takes to fight for what's right, even when the odds are against you. If you were in Jamal's position, what would you do? Would you, 1, stand up and fight for justice, no matter the risks, or 2, prioritize your family's safety and step away from the battle? Leave your comment with a 1 or 2 below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel for more inspiring stories.